Hello. Bit weird seeing this on the channel, I'm sure, but I wanted to try my hand at some video content this year, and this seemed like a good trial run. So last week we finally got the public demo of Yakuza Kiwami 3. It had just a little less content to show off than the Tokyo Game Show build back in September, I believe. Namely that I believe we saw the skill trees, very confusing skill trees, more Karage options, and the ability to swap between Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties from the pause menu. To be honest, I didn't think the game looked that good at the reveal RGG Summit, and it doesn't seem like the game has really changed that much. I want to quickly say as well, I will be addressing a certain elephant in the room, but aside from him, this game has not come together well at all, and I prioritize gameplay above all else in my enjoyment of a game, so I'm going to start with that. So, Kiryu inexplicably has two styles for combat now. Dragon of Dojima seems to have come pretty much straight from Gaijin, and although the demo had set abilities and no way to check them this time, it really feels like it caters to the button mashing crowd, and there isn't a whole lot to think about or a big skill gap, I don't think, for anyone who wants to play not like that. If that's how you want to play, then great, but I personally really enjoyed the original Yakuza 3's combat once I learned how to work around enemies playing very defensively, and also just really properly paying attention to the abilities I was unlocking, trying them all out, and by the game's finale, the final long battle and final boss, the long battle in particular is a big skill check for dealing with weapons. I felt really powerful, like the most confident I've ever felt going into that endgame, and it really feels kind of stupid to say that, oh yeah, paying attention to what I was learning and understanding the game better made the game more enjoyable, but it does. It's genuinely true for Yakuza 3. Now, bearing in mind it was just a demo, I really did not think that the combat was anywhere near that thoughtful. The combos all felt identically useful. Being able to charge every attack in the combo really ruined the balance for me in Gaijin completely, and it seems to be the same problem here. There's no need to think about sidestep attacks to circumvent blocking enemies, because they're a lot stupider this time around, and heat action prompts were incredibly rare for me without holding weapons. This is the same problem I had with Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2, and heat actions are what makes this game stand out. They're like kill streaks in Call of Duty. Like, once you take it out, that's a core part of its personality gone for me. And proper combo finishes are also still gone as well. They were originally super late game upgrades with kind of stupid animations, to be honest. It was a bit ridiculous. I kind of loved it. It was really, really fun to unlock and use. I believe they've been gone for a while. I'm not sure exactly how long. They're technically back in the EX burst or heat burst. I can't even remember what it was called. But it happens automatically at the end of a combo, and it's just, I don't know, it's not fun. The game is playing itself more than you are when that happens. Now, I don't mind the games being very casual friendly. I actually think the pre-Dragon Engine games, aside from 3 and 4 with the crazy enemy blocking that 3 at least is notorious for, I think they generally did a good job at this. You can get by just button mashing faultlessly if you want to, but I really don't see there being a satisfying level of play in this game between button mashing and god tier juggling. So for someone of my skill level who really struggles with the juggling but also wants to think a bit more than just spamming one combo over and over mindlessly and then getting mad that enemies are just blocking all of my combos, there's just nothing there for me. On the other hand, we have Ryukyu style, a new style that incorporates weapons and a shield, and this feels just as pointless. Besides obviously using weapons, nothing really stood out to me besides the shield block as a reason to use this over Dragon of Dojima style. And considering their weapons, including at least one with a blade, I can't say I wasn't paying that much attention, but they deal such little damage, and I understand this balancing knives, swords, guns, whatever, picked up from enemies, just preventing that from being overpowered in a fight. But when an alternate style incorporates them without a durability limit, the style needs to feel different. In my eyes, Ryukyu should attack a lot slower, with the trade-off of hitting much harder than Dragon style. This would make the two styles distinctive and have a reason to use one over the other. We saw this with Beast style in Yakuza 0 and Kiwami 1, and on the weapon front we also saw this with Majima's Slugger style in 0, and Shinada had the baseball bat in Yakuza 5. So clearly it works, we're just not getting that distinction for Kiwami 3. There's just no reason to use Ryukyu's style over Dragon of Dojima aside from the shield. Moving on to Dark Ties, Mine on the other hand actually does have a distinctive style, but it has a bit of a personality crisis. It's comparatively rigid to begin with, which is expected for its boxing attack base, but the strong attacks then deviate strongly into backflip kicks and jumping knee attacks. Latching onto an enemy as an anchor to start attacks on other enemies is really cool, and quite Yagami-esque I feel, but again not very boxing-like, and the strength in that base makes those initial light attacks feel clunky without justification. Mine's charge-up ability is Dark Awakening, where you can expend 1, 2 or 3 hearts as a temporary combat boost. This mod diversifies Mine's moveset greatly and feels a lot more fluid and aggressive, but I couldn't use the third tier at all. Every time I held the button it always stopped at 2 hearts, so I'm not sure if that's a demo upgrade thing or not. But I couldn't notice a difference in the two modes either, the single or double. The moveset and length seemed to be the same, and the damage output also kind of felt the same, or if it is different, it's incredibly negligible. Something else I really didn't like was the gunfire indicator. This probably isn't unlocked by default, but it completely negates the threat of gun enemies being able to stun you from afar, and thus the need to prioritize them and keep an eye on them, especially if dealing with multiple in one fight, is gone. Secondly, the Ryukyu style shield is bulletproof. So not only does it completely block bullets, but you can even ricochet them back to an enemy. And this extreme nerf of gun enemies is kind of worrying, and I think the final long battle in particular is going to be probably not that interesting and not that challenging. It was a real skill check to dealing with weapon enemies in the original, and I have a feeling that's just not going to be a challenge anymore. A big theme for the game is playing up the late 2000s setting, maintaining the mobile phone options and camera but with flip phones instead. This is also how you give yourself the item buffs, by adding charms and aerials and setting wallpapers, while the front case decorations seem to be purely cosmetic. They really play this up with the vertical phone camera view and MIDI ringtones of classic Yakuza tracks for your phone ringtone. These ringtones are incredibly lazy slapdash MIDI melodies on top of the original instrumentals, but even worse, these versions seem to populate about half the music I heard roaming around Okinawa for some reason. Also, they included the charismatic photo but didn't even bother to upscale it. It's amusing, but who thought this looked fine? The 2000 setting is also really undercut by the anachronism of the 2020 Street server. It goes without saying that it's pretty optional this time around, with Ryukyu being significantly smaller than Honolulu. Especially with all the new map cuts. It's a nice thing to have, I guess, but it's not necessary, and I think it actually detracted from my experience to have this option. Next, for something you've probably noticed if you've been watching the gameplay, the game looks incredibly inconsistent. The quality of the models and textures are great, but the lighting is all over the place. Some interiors and story scenes look fine, but generally while roaming the overworld, it looks way too bright, the glow is too strong, and the saturation is also too heavy-handed, just like Pirate Yakuza. It looks very unfinished and unpolished, and I would normally give benefit of the doubt to being a pre-release demo build, but my recollection of previous demos from the studio is that they are very indicative of the game you're getting, so I feel this is probably unlikely to change. It seems that part of their problem is trying to make Kamurocho and Ryukyu look visually distinct in their lighting and color grading. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to a built-up city and a beachside coastal town, but they're inherently very different locales and vibes to begin with, and not only did the original Yakuza 3 not suffer from this at all, but neither did Yakuza 6 in the same engine. To some degree, it seems like this problem stems from trying to fix a problem that just doesn't exist. In contrast to the disappointingly full-bright Ryukyu, Kamurocho seems to sport the Judgment Remastered blues in the day, and the Kiwami 2 green filter at night, but a bit less heavy-handed this time. The original Yakuza 3 did have a very blue feeling to Kamurocho at night, but I'm not sure it needed to be this strongly distinct. Again, it's not an issue I had with the original game. One thing I am really looking forward to though is seeing the Ryukyu map ported to different Dragon Engine games, because I genuinely think across the board it's going to look better modded into other games than Kiwami 3. I also wanted to mention as well that the background trees in Morning Glory are incredibly low resolution, and it seems like it might be the original texture from the PS3 game. This was so low resolution but kind of acceptable at the time, and it really stands out with the significantly higher texture quality across the board in the remake. Now onto the music, in which obviously I have some personal investment with. I've generally not been impressed from what we heard in the demo, which I believe was 2 style themes for both games and 1 boss theme, 5 of which were originals, and Pure Malice returned for the Kiwami 3 demo boss. And this was our first time hearing it properly and not in the background underneath some behind the scenes studio talk. I think the arrangement is kind of lackluster, but it might be a grower. I like the additions to the lead guitar in the midsection and to the chord progression underneath it, but it lacks just so much of the original version's character. The very dry metal drums and generic tone for the guitar just have absolutely nothing on the very raw, disgustingly crunchy scooped mids guitar sound and thin electronic drums, just that 2009 shoji sound. The lack of synth risers in the intro really makes it feel empty as well, compared to how busy it then gets later in the song. I don't think I would complain so much if this was the original, but we've had the original Pure Malice for 17 years, I think. It's not even a competition. I'm my own biggest critic, and I have to admit, I do genuinely think my arrangement of the song is better. The other 5 tracks are all original, and I honestly have significantly less to say about them. Mine's comeback theme is great, I covered that last week. It's like if Mitsuharu Fukuyama composed Speedstar from Yakuza 4. It's still driven by guitars, but it goes quite jazzy with its brass and piano, which is a very welcome surprise, and by far the best track in the demo of the 6 we heard. Mine's Dark Awakening mode switches to some Screamo song, which was also a surprise. I'm not a fan of the song or the style, but I appreciate the stark contrast and how it makes Dark Awakening feel like unleashing a beast, because the gameplay itself doesn't. Kilia's new battle style themes come at the cost of assumed erasure for Crush and Strike, Ryukyu Humming, and Bruise, 3 personal favourites of mine, which are previously played in relation to location and enemy types. This is possibly a time-saving measure, but I've never really liked having music tied to fighting styles, because switching between them completely disrupts the musical flow. The original Japan-only release of Tatsunoko vs Capcom did this, and its second release changed the stage-specific tracks, presumably for exactly this reason. The 2 themes are distinct from each other. Dragon of Dojima style is your standard guitar affair, and Ryukyu style has chanting? This is about the extent of the positive things I think I can say about them. They're just not that interesting, and certainly not worth taking the above and probably other tracks out for. Mine's demo final boss theme was probably even more generic. I remembered absolutely nothing about it without watching my footage back. Admittedly, I did only hear it the once, but I really don't think hearing it back that it is all that interesting. They also changed the music that plays in the Aqua Sky Bar, which I would have jokingly considered the game's worst offense if not for its many actually objectively awful decisions. The original track is genuinely my favorite piece of music in the series, and I don't see the point in replacing it, especially when the new music is just inaudibly quiet. Onto side content, and starting with the smaller things, holding L2 or LT or probably some ungodly keyboard input puts Kiryu into this really weird aiming stance. This is used to catch bugs and make friends, obviously. Making friends is an incredibly minor evolution of the friendship system from Infinite Wealth that I believe was copied and pasted into Pirate Yakuza. I didn't play it. Despite the move to being phone-based, you can still wave at people for no reason, and one honestly has to wonder if it's because nulling the code for this out would have been more work than just keeping the useless feature in. Also, I hope you like hearing this jingle, because you'll be hearing it a lot.
Got it. Got it. We're connected. Got it.
The other main use is for catching items. There are a few points in Ryukyu where a strange moving NPC above street level had an item you could grapple from them, but the timing on it was a bit tricky. I didn't hate that so much, but the amount of bugs and insects flying around you can catch to bring back, I guess, for the More and Glory minigame was crazy. Obviously you can just ignore this if you want to, but they appear a lot, and we've already seen this in Infinite Wealth. I like this as part of the bigger Dondoko Island minigame. I don't like this being recycled in a way that doesn't make that much sense and is constantly in your face. Dress Up is available again, and as you can see, I had a really good time making the absolute worst possible outfit imaginable for Kiryu. I like this as an option to have, mainly because I've played so many hours in Kiryu's grey suit that doing something silly like this is decent fun, and it's justified with the option to disable outfit customization in cutscenes. The level of customization is exactly how we saw it the last two times. It's not super in depth, but it's fine for what it is. The Kiwami 3 demo had 3 sub-stories to tackle: carrying ice cream to the kids, someone about to leap into the river, and Hina's dreams of moving to Tokyo. I don't remember how the last one went originally, because it was part of a series and it all kind of blurred together, but the first 2 were remixed and played out differently, which was nice to see. The available minigames were split between the 2 demos. Kiryu has the photo booth, golf, karaoke, pool, and darts. Mine has mahjong and the inability to play arcade games. I thought the odd selection of games this year was a demo-only option, but they're locked out, meaning they really are just a weird selection of games this time. I played in the English dub, I know, sue me, and Yongye's karaoke is still bad. I might make a short video about this down the line because it's not his fault that the production of the English karaoke minigames aren't great, but it seems to be no different here. The crazy obvious pitch correction and clipping in the backing vocals is just a crazy lack of quality control. I was pleasantly surprised to see the return of I Wanna Change Myself, which is a personal karaoke favourite of mine. The English translation is not terrible, although one line in particular stood out to me as clunky. The singing is also not bad, but the aggressive pitch correction in the English production gets in the way of the otherwise good performance, which I also noticed back with Honolulu City Lights in Infinite Wealth. A few days after the demo's release, the revised ending was data mined from the files. I won't give spoilers in case, but it's bad. I'm saving my full-on critique of the studio and its leads for a longer video down the line, but the revised ending I read was so bad it could equally be a troll post or an actual Yokoyama final product. The man has a sense of humour and knack for absurd silliness in his stories that are meant to be serious and accompanied by wacky side content, which I personally think is growing very stale at this point, and that wackiness just does not resonate with the serious story trying to tell. The remake comes with some recasts and new faces as well, namely Likia and Hamazaki. Likia now loses his dorky charm and just looks like a generic pretty boy, which is a really big downgrade for matching the character's personality, and Hamazaki loses his really memorable face for a generic punchable one instead. Now it's time to address the elephant in the room. Go Hamazaki's recast replaces his face and voice with that of Teruyuki Kagawa. For those not in the know, Kagawa sexually assaulted 2 women in a club in 2019, which was reported on publicly in 2022. Even domestically, his apology was so flimsy that his initial announcement of no acting suspension was met with backlash, and a short hiatus of just 4 months before wriggling back into the kabuki scene. Furthermore, that apology was only for the first woman, and only after the news had been made public. Kagawa actively disavowed the second victim, trying to blame her for taking advantage of the recent report, despite photographic evidence. I'm not going to show those, but they are out there. All this came out years before Kiwami 3 started full production. RGGS are intentionally turning a blind eye to this just because there was no legal enforcement like there was with Pierre Taki and Judgment. The worst part though, the absolute worst, most insensitive part of all this, is that the tiny amount of story we got in the Dark Tides demo involved preventing Kanda from forcing himself onto a woman for Mine's gain. Not because it's the right thing to do, not because the woman matters, simply because it's an opportunity for Mine. Finally, a game that's willing to make the brave statement that sexual assault is fine if your VA did it. You absolutely cannot continue parading your ethics checks and your anti-sexual abuse morals when your villain's actions are indistinguishable from the voice actor you're trying to defend. Yokoyama wholly and RGGS as a whole just don't see the problem with this. But then, Dea Nagoshi seemingly also saw no issue with the original Hamazaki voice actor George Takahashi. Did you know he married a 16-year-old girl 24 years his junior after first meeting when she was 13? That's like if Kiryu married Haruka at the end of Yakuza 5. Is that a horrible thought? It should be. Although the studio has not formally announced their defense or acknowledgement of the community's outcry over the casting, they know. And for a studio that claims to listen to their fanbase, there's been an awful lot of silencing annoying protesters across all outlets. When we heard the directive within RGGS was to keep designing games for Japan despite a bigger Western audience, this is a level of antagonism, egotism, and stupidity that nobody could have expected, and one that leaves the awful impression that sexual assault is fine, but doing cocaine is where the line is drawn, and you don't need me to tell you that's just completely backwards. Overall, I think Yakuza Kiwami 3 has the potential to be genuinely one of the worst games the studio has ever put out. I have a big problem with them rushing out games for the entire series history, and it really shows on the few occasions like Judgment and Infinite Wealth where that much needed polish can be felt. Kiwami 3 specifically is a mixed bag of being an underbaked rush job with a side game that likely doesn't have enough meat on the bone to justify itself existing, and double down moral dubiousness that just completely goes against one of the series' persistent core messages. And it's a real shame, because the concept and packaging, and especially the cover art for the two games together, is genuinely fantastic. I never liked Mine in the original game because I never had a reason to, I didn't think. I just never felt he was a threat and kind of picked out of a hat to be the final boss. And as much as I despise the coupling together of Guide and Half games, a short but decent enough backstory game for Mine with unique combat that ties into and is packed together with a parallel developed remake of Yakuza 3 has the potential to be fantastic, and we've seen some genuinely great brawler action in the Dragon engine. This though is not about making a good product, it's about enforcing annual releases like their Call of Duty without realizing how and why that system works for them. I've been falling out of love with the series for genuinely years at this point. The 2022 Summit stream was the straw that broke the camel's back, and the 2025 Summit was when I was finally able to not feel bad about missing these games at all. I do think a large amount of the recent issues with the studio stem from Yokoyama, and probably also Holy, if not others, but Nagoshi isn't a saint in my eyes either. Just a much better filter as the studio head for ideas that were shut down like a Kiryu Amnesia arc. My problems with the rushed game releases and poor storytelling very much stem from Nagoshi's tenure in the company, but it's actually kind of crazy just how quickly they tried to undo all of their goodwill under Yokoyama's leadership. And worst of all, with suppressing the Remove Kagawa movement, I don't think they're learning anything from this at all. But it's okay, because I think the community is taking it well. What did you guys think of the demo and everything else surrounding the game? I think I have a pretty good idea based on the cover of Mine's battle theme I posted last week, but I want to know exactly what you all think. What you agreed and disagreed with, and what you liked and didn't like. If you're new to the channel, by the way, a like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated. I cover video game music, and a bunch of my Yakuza covers were in the background of the video actually, so if you're interested in hearing more, you know where to look. Thanks for watching.